The dream of immortality had haunted humanity for centuries, whispered in myths and pursued in secret laboratories. But no one ever expected it to arrive so suddenly or with such devastating consequences. When a team of brilliant scientists unlocked the key to biological immortality, they thought they had achieved the greatest breakthrough in human history. Aging could be stopped, diseases cured, and death itself defied. But no one asked the most important question: should we live forever? At first, the world marveled at the new age of human existence. The richest and most powerful seized control of the technology, building a society where the elite could live forever while the rest of humanity remained trapped in their mortal fate. Black markets emerged, offering unregulated treatments that came with horrifying risks. Governments collapsed under the weight of the growing divide between the deathless few and the countless millions doomed to wither away. And as the years stretched into centuries, an unexpected truth emerged: immortality was not a gift. It was a curse. The oldest among the immortals began to change, their minds unraveling in ways no one could predict. Their bodies remained young, but their thoughts became alien, their emotions stripped away, their desires reduced to nothing but an endless, primal hunger. The world soon realized that death had not been defeated, it had merely taken on a new form. In a desperate attempt to stop the horror from spreading, a rogue faction of scientists and rebels sought to destroy the very technology they had once celebrated. But it was too late. The immortals would not let go of eternity so easily. Now, humanity stands at the edge of its greatest reckoning. The secret to eternal life has been revealed, but at what cost? And as those who have lived for centuries face their own terrifying evolution, one final question remains: if you could live forever, would you? Scientists had long theorized about the possibility of halting aging, but no one expected the breakthrough to come so soon. A team of genetic researchers working on cellular regeneration stumbled upon a method to prevent cell degradation entirely. What started as a small experiment in longevity quickly spiraled into something much bigger: true biological immortality. The discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific community, with researchers marveling at the implications. They had essentially conquered death. The first human trials proved astonishingly successful, as subjects who underwent the treatment showed no signs of aging, their cells regenerating flawlessly. The world soon took notice, and within months, powerful governments and corporations rushed to patent and control the process. It became clear that immortality would not be a gift for all, but rather a privilege reserved for the elite. The wealthiest individuals seized the opportunity first, securing their eternal youth while the rest of humanity could only watch in awe. Celebrities, politicians, and billionaires became the first generation of immortals, untouched by the ravages of time. At first, they paraded their agelessness as a marvel of human achievement, their flawless, unchanging faces gracing news reports and social media. But beneath the surface, unease grew. Scientists warned that their work was far from complete, that they had only scratched the surface of the long-term consequences. Yet, greed and ambition drowned out their concerns. Those who could afford the treatment sought to extend their influence indefinitely, creating a new class of beings that would never die, never fade, never relinquish power. As the divide between the immortal elite and the mortal masses widened, tension mounted. Society was changing, but no one realized just how irreversible the consequences of their discovery would be. The experiment had succeeded, but at what cost? At first, the promise of immortality seemed like the dawn of a new golden age. Scientists assured the public that, in time, the treatment would become more accessible, that one day, death would be a relic of the past for all humanity. But reality was far more complex. The process of halting aging required resources so rare and expensive that only the wealthiest could afford it. Despite initial promises, the formula remained locked away behind corporate patents and government restrictions. As the immortal elite solidified their grip on power, the rest of society began to fracture under the weight of inequality. Those who could not access the treatment were forced to watch as a small percentage of humanity escaped death while the rest continued to wither away. The world grew bitter, and resentment festered in the hearts of those left behind. It didn't take long for unrest to turn into full-blown chaos. Movements arose demanding access to the treatment, protests erupted in major cities, and some groups took a more violent approach, targeting research facilities and immortal individuals in acts of desperation. Governments responded with force, deploying militarized police to crush the uprisings, further solidifying the divide between the deathless ruling class and the mortal majority. To maintain order, laws were put in place forbidding unauthorized research on the treatment, and those who sought to steal immortality for themselves were imprisoned or worse. What was once a dream of human advancement had become a nightmare of oppression. Meanwhile, rumors spread that some had found black market ways to achieve immortality, hidden away in underground labs where rogue scientists experimented on desperate volunteers. But these unregulated procedures came with terrifying risks. Some who sought eternal life found themselves trapped in bodies that could not heal, consciousness frozen in agony. Immortality was no longer just a scientific marvel, it was a battleground. As the number of immortals grew, an unforeseen consequence began to surface, one that no scientist, philosopher, or policymaker had adequately prepared for. With death no longer an inevitability, the natural cycle of human civilization started to break down. Societies had always relied on generational shifts to bring fresh ideas, new leadership, and cultural evolution. But now, the same individuals remained in power for centuries, accumulating influence that no mortal could ever challenge. Political dynasties solidified, corporate empires expanded unchecked, and economic inequality widened beyond comprehension. What had once been a world of opportunity became one of stagnation, where those who had lived for hundreds of years refused to make way for the young. The immortal elite, having experienced centuries of existence, became detached from the struggles of those still bound by time. They saw the mortal population as a separate, lesser species, one destined to fade while they endured. Laws were rewritten to protect their dominance, and soon, immortality was no longer just a privilege but a means of control. The workforce suffered as older generations refused to retire, preventing younger minds from rising through the ranks. Universities became irrelevant, as no new knowledge could challenge what centuries-old intellects had already mastered. Ambition, innovation, and creativity slowly withered, suffocated by the weight of an undying ruling class that feared change above all else. But the problem extended beyond economics and governance. With the absence of death, overpopulation reached catastrophic levels. Cities swelled beyond capacity, natural resources dwindled, and entire regions became uninhabitable due to unchecked urban expansion. Space colonization, once seen as a potential solution, proved inadequate for the sheer number of undying individuals. The Earth groaned under the weight of eternal life, and for the first time in history, humanity faced a dilemma it could not escape. It had outlived the world it was meant to inherit. As the centuries passed and immortality became the defining trait of the human race, a new and unexpected issue emerged: the decline of human purpose. For millennia, the brevity of life had given people meaning, urgency, and the drive to achieve greatness before their time ran out. Now, with eternity stretched out before them, ambition withered. The thrill of discovery dulled when there was always another day to pursue knowledge. Art, once an expression of fleeting human emotions, became repetitive, with immortal artists perfecting their craft to the point of stagnation. Love lost its depth, as relationships that once burned brightly in the face of mortality now became indefinite, leading to detachment instead of devotion. Without death to shape human experiences, civilization entered a strange state of existential paralysis. People who had lived for centuries began to withdraw from society, retreating into solitude as they lost interest in the world around them. Memories piled up endlessly, and many struggled to retain a sense of identity as their past became too vast to recall. Some immortals chose to erase sections of their memories to make room for new experiences, effectively resetting themselves every few hundred years. Others simply shut down, entering a state of apathy, unable to find joy in a life that had no conclusion. Governments and corporations saw this as a crisis, but also as an opportunity. They introduced new methods of engineered excitement, manufactured conflicts, artificial challenges, and simulated dangers to keep people engaged. Entire industries arose dedicated to rekindling the passion that mortality had once provided. Some sought extreme experiences, risking everything in death-defying scenarios, knowing they would always heal. But deep down, a growing number of people began to ask the unthinkable: was immortality truly a gift, or had humanity doomed itself to a meaningless eternity? As the realization set in that immortality was not the paradise humanity had envisioned, a quiet rebellion began to take shape. For centuries, people had fought to conquer death, but now, an underground movement emerged: those who sought to reclaim the right to die. They called themselves the Finites, individuals who rejected the endless existence that had become the norm. At first, their beliefs were dismissed as irrational, even dangerous, but as more immortals fell into despair, their philosophy gained traction. They argued that without an end, life had no meaning, and that true freedom came from the ability to choose when one's journey should conclude. Governments, however, were unwilling to allow their citizens to simply opt out of immortality. Too much had been invested in eradicating death, too many resources had been allocated to ensuring that the species endured forever. The idea of voluntary mortality was viewed as a threat to the stability of civilization, and soon, laws were passed prohibiting self-termination. Those who tried were forcibly revived, their minds reprogrammed to suppress thoughts of ending their existence. But this only fueled the resistance. The Finites began developing secret methods to bypass the regeneration protocols, searching for ways to permanently shut down the immortal body and escape the eternal cycle of revival. As tensions grew, society became divided between those who clung to eternal life and those who longed for the finality of death. Scientists, once celebrated for granting humanity endless existence, now found themselves questioning their own creations. Had they given humanity a gift, or had they sentenced them to an eternity of suffering? The debate raged on, and in the shadows, whispers spread of a final solution, a way to undo immortality itself. But if such a thing were possible, would anyone be brave enough to use it?